Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about issue number 3 of Uncanny X-Men from the Ashes, written by Gail Simone and art by David Marquez. But before we dive into the story, I want to ask you a favor. If you enjoy this video, please leave a like and a comment to help the channel grow. Now this issue opens from a page of Charles's private journal, and when we get there, this entry picks up 30 days after Charles met Sarah. And by the looks of it, the two of them were madly in love, and everything was going great until Sarah dropped a bombshell on him. Because out of the blue, on the next page, Sarah informed Charles that she was pregnant. Now, like most people in this situation, Charles freaked out because of how little they knew of each other. But according to Sarah, none of that mattered because she just wanted to have their kid, and for a moment, Charles did too. But before we could get a resolution on this story, we fast forward to the current day with Kurt bamfing Rogue to Wolverine's location. Because as of the last issue, Sarah caught Wolverine slipping and did a number on him. So, of course, the cavalry was here to help him. And when we get there, we get a narration from Rogue saying she don't know how she knew Wolverine was in trouble, she just knew he was dying in the dark alone. And that, right there, is something Rogue can't have happened, because if he was to die, then she has to be right there to hold him, because she made that vow to him long ago. So as the two fly to the ground, Rogue thinks to herself how she wants no more grief, because they have had too much of that as of late, first with Krakoa and then with what happened to Charles. So with the two on site, Rogue was positive this was where she had seen Wolverine in her vision, and after a few moments, Kurt was too, for he discovered the trail of destruction that led to our hero. So with panic and fear in their hearts, Rogue braced herself for what she was about to witness, as on the next page, we see Wolverine covered in blood with his flesh along with his clothes torn to shreds. So with no hesitation, both Kurt and Rogue ran to his side, and to their surprise, he was awake but not functioning. And as for Rogue, she thought to herself that Wolverine was the one who taught her not to hate herself when they met and was the first decent man to ever say he loved her and meant it. So with Logan in no shape to fight and badly hurt, Rogue tells Kurt to get him out of there first, but before they left, Wolverine informs Rogue that the woman who did this to him was still there, and when Rogue asks him for a name, he just responded by calling her Death. So with that going down, Kurt begged Rogue to come back with them, but Rogue was dead set on dealing with this issue alone. Following that, Kurt started to help Logan to his feet, as Rogue took out her phone and called Gambit, and as you may have guessed, Gambit was not on board with her dealing with this issue alone. But due to Rogue's determination to see no one else hurt, Rogue went on to say, if he loved her, if he ever felt even a whisper of love for her, then he would stay there. And to seal the deal, Rogue made him promise on their marriage. Now on a side note, I think Rogue was overdoing it, by going in solo and making her lover promise not to help her. But that is just my 2 cents on the matter. But anyway, right before Kurt bamf away, Wolverine asks Rogue to take his healing factor. But for some reason, Rogue refused, so with that settled, Wolverine asks Kurt to give him some good news before teleporting him away, to which Kurt replies by saying, Krakoa still exists. So with everyone gone, we then pick up with Rogue all alone walking by the water as she states that she knows she is nearby, and then encourage Sarah by name to come out, because it's just them left alone. And just like that, Sarah descended from the sky and told Rogue to come to mommy. But see, Rogue wasn't playing, because she landed a crazy hit on Sarah before she could even make contact. But that glorious hit was short-lived, because Sarah returned a hit back to Rogue that was quote-unquote stronger than Colossus's hit. And by the diabolical smile on Sarah's face, Rogue could tell this individual would never stop hunting them. So as their battle started to pick up, we jumped back over to Haven, with Kurt bamfing Wolverine into the kitchen. And once they got there, the first thing everyone did was hastily place the badly hurt Logan onto the closest table. And then following that, we then hopped over to the prison, and once there we see Corina telling Philip that they have a problem. Because under their base, someone accessed the Morlock tunnels without authorization. And to make things worse, the perimeter system is giving them unreliable data, and finally, Charles has gone catatonic. So with all that playing out, the doctor connected the dots and came to the conclusion that their mutant supplier, Sarah, is going after their leader and the kids. So with Sarah on the hunt, Corina then went on to switch up her tune and say, well, it's not their affair and she doesn't see how it's their problem, so as far as she is concerned, goodbye and good riddance. But that is when the doctor brings up that the kids are 15, 16, and the oldest is just shy of 17, which is the same age as Corina's brother. Now with that statement made, Corina reluctantly asked what would the doctor have her do, to which he responds by saying he would have her send out the trustees. Now following that, we hop back over to Sarah beating Rogue down, and just like before, Sarah was sending down blow upon blow, and this most recent one did heavy damage, to the point where Rogue believed that she just suffered a concussion. With Rogue basically dead to rights, Sarah picks up Rogue and asks if they know where she gets her power from, and after she slams Rogue into the ground, she continues to tell Rogue to look around, for she gets her power from every living thing, every cricket, and sapling. For there are 10 million acres of trees in this state alone. Now with Rogue underfoot, Sarah thought the battle was done, until out of nowhere, Rogue mustered up everything she had left and somehow delivered a mean uppercut directly under Sarah's chin. So with our hero back on the attack, Rogue then followed up with a vicious knee, and once it landed, Rogue heard a crack. Now this noise solidified one thing to her: if something can crack, then that means something can also break. Now with Rogue going all in, she then went on to tell Sarah that she has a little secret. And that was she is able to absorb powers, and because of that, she has a little bit of Wonder Man's ability running through her alongside a little bit of Captain Marvel's. And see, that wasn't everything, because within her was also a little Wolverine, and with that said, Rogue delivered a mean hook that sent Sarah flying back. But every time Rogue gets the upper hand, Sarah just proves that she could come back twice as hard. Because after a few short combos, Rogue was back at square one. So with the battle all but over, Rogue then tells Sarah to wait just 1 minute, because she could touch her, and take her power, and turn her back to normal. But see, that was of little concern to Sarah, because at this point Sarah was living a nightmare. In fact, on the next page, we get a little more of her backstory. We learn that Sarah hasn't slept for 17 years following a massive hurricane. And during that disaster, there was $125 billion in damage, and almost a third of the people who left never came back. And among that number of those who never returned, she was a part of them, for she waited for help that never came. And during the storm, both her and her child held on for dear life. Sarah held both herself and her 9-year-old son Brian, who was still wearing his pajamas with no food, no water, with just her left hand for as long as she could. Until sometime during the night, her right hand somehow became empty. Now, as you may have guessed, this grief and guilt was too much for Sarah to bear, so in what she thought was her final act, Sarah carved "I'm sorry" into the roof of her home, and just let go and joined her son under the waves. And once she let go, Sarah asked for peace and for forgiveness, but unfortunately, she was denied. So as she sank, she saw things floating all around her, in that wretched filthy water. She saw bodies, and worse, so much worse, and when everything was said and done, what came out of the water 3 days later wasn't the same Sarah that went in. So with her story explained, Rogue went on to tell Sarah that she can't blame mutants for that, to which Sarah corrected her by saying, she said nothing about mutants, for she blames Charles. Following that, Rogue asked if maybe Sarah was a mutant herself. Now this question sparked rage in Sarah's heart, for she grabbed Rogue and told her never to call her that again as she broke her forearm. With that going down, we then jump over to Corinna making a surprising phone call to one Gambit, and on this phone call, Corinna tells Gambit that Sarah doesn't care about his wife, because all she wants to do is kill the mutant kids he is protecting. So to achieve that, Sarah is distracting Rogue while a small army is heading their way. And just as suddenly as Corinna called Gambit, she just as quickly hung up once the message was delivered. Once the warning was out, Gambit ordered all the kids to seek shelter in the basement alongside the host family as he held off the enemies alone. But Jubilee and Kurt was not about to let that happen, for they all was members of the X-Men, and they was going to stand together and weather this storm as one. So with Gambit, Kurt, and Jubilee standing defiant, before them, from the dark woods emerged a small army of hooded men led by a female creature. And this creature went on to say, "People of the house below, too long have their kind existed only to spoil the bloodlines of true humanity, so they have two options, surrender or suffer the consequences." Now these consequences weren't just for the X-Men to bear, for from the basement emerged the kids, because from their standpoint, they rather die fighting outside than be picked off in a basement. But see, this wasn't the end of the coalition, for they still had one more member that wasn't going to miss this fight. And that was the wounded Wolverine. And according to Logan, all they had to do was just point him toward the enemies and stay out of his way. And with that said, this issue of Uncanny X-Men comes to an end. But anyway, down in the comment section below, let me know your thoughts about this issue and what predictions you could have moving forward. So with that established, I hope you enjoyed this video, and please don't forget to leave a like and a comment if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.